We can. Okay. We can get into like the actual movie because like what I was saying is
touching me because it kept falling down.
Saying this is a Sopranos prequel is almost misleading because while a lot of the same characters, obviously the same sets, obviously we see Tony Soprano in it. This is its own contained story though, and I was saying where. When I was watching kind of the trailers and mostly like the movie posters, when you see it's Dicky Moltisanti and they say, see who made Tony Soprano, they were kind of building it up like it was going to be a Tony Soprano origin story. That's not what this movie is. And this movie, you know, it doesn't take the typical prequel route of the things that you're expecting to see in a prequel. You know, think about like the Star Wars prequel trilogy, you know, if you're somebody who's into Star Wars. My brother is not, but the Star Wars prequel trilogy, it's all about Darth Vader, and you see exactly how the Empire is created, how Darth Vader turns evil, and that's not what this movie is doing. And I was looking at those trailers, and I was just like, that's not what this movie is. It's not going to be a Tony Soprano origin story.
Well, you know what the problem was they needed to, whether David Chase intended on this or not, at least HBO, from a marketing perspective, was of course not going to let up on the Sopranos angle.
Yes,
but then what you do with that is you set people up for thinking like, you know, not just for the anticipation of, oh my God, it's like a resurrection or it's a continuation of some kind of Sopranos verse thing, but you're it's almost like an impossible task to do something on that level in one movie. And then, but also like they weren't very explicit about like, this isn't a Tony Soprano origin story.
Yeah.
And it's not like it was just kind of like its own thing in Sopranos universe.
Exactly. It's its own, it's not really a prequel. It's its own thing in the universe of the Sopranos. And I remember after the movie came out, I was getting texts from friends of mine, and I was just, and they were all just like, basically saying the same thing of just like, I like the movie, I like the story it's telling, I like, you know, kind of the social commentary that it's trying to say, but it doesn't really like, you don't really see what turned Tony Soprano to become a gangster. And I was like...
No, not at all.
Yeah, but that's because the advertising was saying it was going to do that. That's not what the movie is.
They kind of fucked up in that regard. You know? They fucked up on a multitude of levels because, you know, and let's just be honest, like, this is not a good movie. It's not a great movie. You could maybe say it's... When I saw it in theaters and we all went out, our family went to see it, and like... because we're very happy, you know, obviously that it was being released after all this time and it was something that you were involved in. And I was kind of overtaken with, like, that magnitude of the situation and seeing it in theaters, that when it started getting bad reviews, the bad reviews started coming in, and even some friends of mine were saying things and asking my opinion and kind of, like, trashing it. I was taken aback. But on a second viewing on HBO Max... It's weak, you know. It's not a great. It does a lot of things that the show itself was better than. Like it plays into the fan fiction.
I liked it even better the second time.
I didn't.
I liked
its flaws were more apparent to me the second viewing.
I'd say its flaws were more apparent its first viewing. I went into this movie knowing that it was getting bad reviews.
See, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I went into this movie knowing that it was getting bad reviews. And the thing about it was, like, the problems that I had with it on first viewing, I didn't really have the second viewing. Some of the problems I had with it were some of the acting I thought wasn't great the first time, and then the second time things just seemed a bit smoother. I Michael Gandolfini I like. I think he's a good actor, but I don't think he's like a leading man type actor.
No, he doesn't have any sort of charisma at all. He's not, his personality, the only thing he has in common with his father is the fucking name.
Yeah.
That's it. And it's not I'm not comparing them as actors because that wouldn't be fair. It's his first. But there's no menace. There's nothing that would make you believe that this guy becomes Tony Soprano.
Right.
He's soft. Like he's not even mean. Like he doesn't have a hard edge to him. He doesn't have any grit to him at all. He's like a soft, innocent kid who's like looking up to his uncle. And that's all you get.
Right.
You get nothing about how he doesn't even like. You get nothing about his upbringing other than he's around mafia people. But there's nothing. It doesn't give you anything in the way of like what went into making Tony Soprano.
No.
It's about this like isolated time with Dickie Moltisanti and the DeMeo family. Like then that's kind of it.
I agree, but I agree because the Tony Soprano that we see here, I mean, he has 25 years left to become that person. And when you say like
that's a problem with the timeline too, because his character in this movie goes from being like a really young kid to like a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
But Tony Soprano in the real world of Sopranos, by the time he was 16, he was borderline like robbing poker games and shit.
Right.
Like the
timeline is a little weird.
The timeline doesn't work. Like it didn't work to get Michael Gandolfini involved. He was either like too old for where they were trying to portray him.
Yeah.
And like it just didn't it just was kind of a mess, man.
I don't know.
I know that's disappointing to hear, but we have to be objective, like as much as possible.
And trying to be objective as possible.
It's hard.
I don't really know if I agree with that.